You're watching the Cult News Network International New Year's Eve edition.
Good evening. I'm Cliff Henrys, sitting in for Wester Cults.
And I'm Glenda Henrys. I want to wish you all a secular Happy New Year.
Before the festivities begin, we'd like to address a couple of our callers. Our first caller is from Detroit. She visited the Detroit branch IDMR and was associated with its members over the years. And she has a question for us.
Go ahead, caller. You're on live.
Hi, I had a friend who attended Detroit IDMR, and I went with her as a visitor. And it wasn't for me because it seemed like a cult. I could tell that they worshiped the guy they called the dean. But I still would go to her parties because she said they were fundraisers, and she was my friend. She told me that the money for these cabarets would be going to support the school. But I found out that they were actually giving the money to the dean and his wife. And I'll never forget this time. They were sitting at a table, and she called them mom and dad. And so we walked away, and I'm like, girl, why are you calling those old folks mom and dad? Those ain't your mom and dad. And she said, oh, well, these are my spiritual parents. I'm like, no, girl, this is a cult.
So what is your question?
Okay, so do other branch schools of the IDMR refer to their deans as dad or the wives of the deans as mom? Or is this a local phenomenon?
Well, besides Detroit calling their dean dad, Pasadena branch called their dean Glenn Kinley dad. We had reports that Dr. Mixon in Florida was referred to by some as dad. And of course, California LA branch, they did refer to their dean, Robert Harris, as dad. Oddly enough, after Dr. Harris passed away, they now refer to him as the mother or mom, and Dr. Kinley has now become the dad. They're doing this to avoid what it says in Matthew 23:9, call no man upon earth father. So instead, they just call him dad.
Oh, okay, so they're doing it to avoid having to call them father. They just call them dad. That makes sense.
Oh, I know an IDMR would always call that scripture if they wanted to talk about the priest of the Roman Catholic Church, how people would call them father. But here they were turning around and doing the same thing covertly, using the term dad.
There's a striking similarity that we have found between IDMR and the People's Temple. Jim Jones, the most infamous cult leader of all time, Jonestown, Guyana, his followers refer to him as Dad. Refer to the New York Times, November 29, 1978. The article is entitled "A Portrait of Cults, Faith, and Fear." In this article are letters of the followers of Jim Jones, the cult called the People's Temple, in which they write their founder and refer to him as Dad.
Wait a minute. You're talking about Jim Jones, the guy who had all the people drink the poisonous Kool-Aid? That Jim Jones? They called him Dad?
That's right.
Oh, man, I am really creeped out. I'm so glad I didn't join that group. What a bunch of weirdos. I knew something wasn't right. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
It is really scary if you think about it. I mean, IDMR is just like the Jim Jones cult. Who would have known?
I know, and if you listen to the rhetoric of Los Angeles, they're talking about when Aaron goes, we all go. So what do you think is going to happen when he dies and they're still here? You know?
Wow.
They just might drink the Kool-Aid. You never know.
I hope not. But we'll see after the break. Hope you're enjoying yourself.